All right, in this video, I want to take a look at the European parliamentary elections in another 4 countries, those being Ireland, Portugal, Romania, and Sweden. This is going to be kind of a quick overview of what happened in those countries last Sunday, what results each of the parties got, and how the seats were distributed within the countries. It's going to be kind of a brief overview and look at what happened in the country and what it means going forward. Now, in Ireland, we do have somewhat of a different electoral system than most countries in Europe. Ireland does use a ranked choice voting system, and the seats are distributed between 3 regions, the North, the South, and Dublin. And so that means that the overall results that each party gets in the first vote, this is the first preference that each party gets, is not necessarily reflective of how many seats they get, and also is not really reflective of the strength of the parties overall, because this system does allow for independents and for individual candidates based on their personal popularity to win out over, the party's nationwide popularity or region-wide popularity overall. But nonetheless, we can take a look at the results for Ireland. We see that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, the two kind of center-right establishment parties that have dominated Irish politics for much of its current history, came out on top, both getting over 20% of the vote. The more conservative Fine Gael won slightly ahead, and Fianna Fáil came in second with 20.4% of the vote. The kind of surprise of the election was that Sinn Féin, the left-wing populist party, came in third place as they did last time. However, they won only 11.1%. This was actually a small dip in support from what they got in the last election, and a large drop in support from what they got in the last general election, where they topped over 24% of the vote. And so this was definitely a defeat for Sinn Féin. The party itself was not able to gain momentum. However, this is not as bad as it looks, because there were some other left-wing populist socialist candidates, such as the Independents for Change, and one in the Independents grouping that did run, maybe taking some votes away from Sinn Féin. And so this is not a total catastrophic result for them, but this is not where the party wants to be if they want to be competing with the two established parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, both at 20% of the vote. So Sinn Féin definitely stumbled here. They were not able to garner the support they needed to kind of contest the other two parties in the next general election, so this will be a bad sign for them, but they probably do have the time to slightly recover. They also did suffer some losses in the local elections. You had Independent Ireland, which is a kind of more conservative, national conservative party. They won 6.2% of the vote. The Greens dropped significantly, winning only 5.4%. The Independents for Change, this is the party of Wallace and Claire Daly. This is a party with positions to the left of Sinn Féin. They sit as various independent politicians, but run as Independents for Change as the kind of list. The Labour Party won 3.4%. And then the various independents that ran won 14%. Technically speaking, the independents came third place. However, they are different, individual politicians. And so the votes together can't really be counted in the same way that one party can. Now, the results for the two governing parties were an okay result for both of them. Obviously, both of them have been historically higher. Fine Gael lost a lot of support. Fianna Fáil was able to gain some. Now, if we take a look at the seats, we can see what this vote was translated into. We can see that the Fine Gael lost 1, going down to 4, tying with Fianna Fáil, also with 4 seats. Sinn Féin was able to gain 1 seat. The Independent Ireland Party and Labour Party were both able to gain 1 seat. The Greens lost both of their seats, and Independents for Change, both of the candidates, including McWallis and Claire Daly, were defeated, losing their seats. You had other parties contest. The 2 independent candidates, the one from the last election, Mike Flanagan from the left, was able to retain his seat, and another independent politician, formerly from the Labour Party, was able to gain a seat as well. And so that's going to be it for Ireland, and we'll move on to the next country, which is Portugal. Now, in Portugal, the Socialist Party won first place with 32.1%, slightly ahead of the Conservatives, which won 31.1% of the vote. So these two parties were clearly neck and neck in this election, being very dominant and having a strong lead over the following parties. The right-wing populist Chega Party, which is a part of the ID group, did manage to win 10% of the vote, winning seats in the EU Parliament for the first time. However, this was slightly down from what the polls were showing, and also down from their 18% in the national elections that happened, kind of a few months prior. And so they did underperform slightly. The Liberal Party did win around 9% of the vote as well. And so this was a, kind of a large increase in support for them. They were able to win seats as well. And then you had the 2 left-wing political alliances as well. The Left Bloc won 4.3% of the vote, and the CDU, which includes the Portuguese Communist Party won 4.1% of the vote. And the Communist Party in Portugal is one of those parties that could potentially form an alliance with the BSV in Germany. There is a difference between these two. They both sit with the European United Left group. However, there are some kind of minor ideological differences that could cause them to maybe form their own groups in the future. And if we take a look at the seats, we can see the Socialist Party lost 1 seat, winning the most with 8. The Conservatives held on to 7. Chega won 2 seats for the first time. The Liberal Initiative Party also won 2 seats for the first time. And the Left Bloc and the CDU, the Unitary Democratic Coalition, both sustained losses, losing 1 seat, but they were both able to hold on to 1 seat and maintain representation within the European Parliament. Now, in Romania, we actually had an interesting situation. The two main parties in the country that have dominated the country's politics, at least in terms of its recent history, the Social Democrats and the National Liberals, actually ran together as one political party. They have formed coalitions in the past together, and they are currently working together as well. So they decided to form a kind of a single political list, a political alliance to reflect that. And so they ran technically together as one party, and that's why they won 49, almost 50% of the vote, clearly pulling ahead of all of their parties. But of course, this is the result from two political parties that ran separately in the last elections, and this is basically in line with what they got in the last EU elections back in 2019. So not a major drop in support at all for the established parties. The Alliance for the Unity of Romanians, a new national conservative party that was founded a few years ago, which entered the last parliament, was able to win 15% of the vote, becoming the technically second largest party, excluding this bloc. This was a moderate result for them. This was kind of slightly below what the polls had expected, but this was their first, entrance into the European Parliament, winning, third place or second place, no matter which way you take it. The ADU, which was the kind of center-right bloc, mixed of maybe liberal conservatives and some centrists, dropped and lost a lot of support, only winning 8.5% compared to the last election when they won around 22% of the vote. The UDMR, this is the party of the Hungarian minority within Romania. They are somewhat close to Fidesz and Viktor Orban in Hungary. They are somewhat of a kind of regional party, but with some kind of center-right political values, and so they won 6.6% of the vote as well. They rely on the minority in Hungary, or the Hungarian minority in Romania, and so they don't really play much of a role outside of that group in the country. SOS Romania is a group that actually split away from the AUR. They are led by one of the politicians of the AUR, and it's another right-wing populist national conservative grouping. They actually intend to sit with the ID group, whereas the AUR intends to sit with the ECR, and so they are somewhat similar, but if you take these results together, that is a 20% towards this new right-wing bloc within Romania. You also had an independent politician that's affiliated with the Greens, won around 3%, which was enough to win him a seat in the EU Parliament. If we take a look at the seats, the alliance between the Social Democrats and the National Liberals, of course, won the most by far, winning 19 of the 33 seats in the country. The Alliance of the Unity of Romanians gained some seats, winning 6. The ADU on 3. The Hungarian Minority Party, 2 seats, SOS Romania, 2, and the Green independent politician won his seat with, of course, 1. And that's going to be it for Romania, and now we're going to look at the last country, which is Sweden. Now, in Sweden, the Social Democrats were able to win the election, winning 25% of the vote. This was a slight increase from the last EU election, and also they were clearly ahead of the center-right moderate party of the incumbent prime minister, which only won 17.5% of the vote. So the two parties of the former and current governing coalition were in first and second place. We had a slight increase in support for the Greens, and this was contrary to many European countries such as France, Ireland, and Germany, where the Green parties suffered heavy losses. But in Sweden, the Greens were able to make some gains and actually place third. The Sweden Democrats, which is the National Conservative Party to the right of the moderates, they are involved in the current government. They actually suffered some losses, winning only 13%, a slight decrease from the last EU election. The left-wing populist party, the left bloc, which is to the left of the Social Democrats, was able to win 11% of the vote, increasing some from their previous result. The Center Party won 7.3%. This is the Agrarian Party, with some center-left positions, somewhat of an ally to the Social Democrats, but also maybe more moderate on some issues. The Christian Democrats won 5.7%, and the Liberals won 4.4%. This election was somewhat of a test on the current incumbent center-right government, involving the moderate party, the Sweden Democrats, and the Christian Democrats, and also the Liberals. And so this result for them was definitely a kind of disappointment and a defeat. They did not come first place, and also there were some minor losses for the Sweden Democrats. The moderates made some gains, but not really too significant. Now, arguably, the foreign policy question played a significant role in this election between, of course, the Russia-Ukraine conflict and also Sweden's entrance into NATO. What's interesting to note is, of course, the Sweden Democrats, as a part of the ECR, are very different than the rest of the national conservative and right-wing populist parties in Europe. The ECR parties are very hostile towards Russia and very Atlanticist, whereas the ID parties are a lot more friendly towards Russia and a lot more kind of independent. They want to have a more neutral stance in terms of the balance of power between the East and West. And this could have played a role with some of their voters maybe being unhappy with the party. Also, the left was one of the few parties in Sweden that really positioned themselves against or kind of cautioned from Sweden's entry into NATO and the hostilities between the country and Russia. And this was the case also in Finland. And I'll do, of course, the video on that sometime tomorrow. And so there was an interesting result where the left-wing populists, the kind of far-left parties, did a lot better than expected, or slightly better than expected, and the kind of national conservatives did worse than expected. And I'm not saying the foreign policy question alone was the result of this, but it did have somewhat of an effect on the results in both Sweden and in Finland. Now, if we take a look at the seats, we can see that the Social Democrats won 5, the moderates on 4, the Green Party won 3, along with the Sweden Democrats. The left party was able to gain a seat, winning 2, the Center Party won 2 seats, the Christian Democrats lost 1, and the Liberals won. So you can see pretty much every party held onto its seat, with the Christian Democrats losing 1 and that going to the left party. And that's going to be it for this video. I hope everyone liked it, and I will do another one on the last 4 countries. And so if you all enjoyed, please do like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you all for watching.